Lexi Nelson.
Here.
And thank you to any of us. Can I have a volunteer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, David. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a volunteer to lead us in an invocation. Thanks, Carson.
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee. We're grateful for this opportunity to meet. Please help us to do thy will, and will to do what's best for all involved. Grateful for all that we have, and we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. Are we doing the minutes first? Make a motion that we approve the agenda as it's outlined. Second. I mean, discussion meeting, we can, as well as we move around. Okay, call for the vote. Myself, yes. Kirsten?
Yes.
Dayton? Yes. Thank you. Now you're. I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the January 13th, 2026 board meeting.
I'll second it.
Lexi, any discussion needed? Looked okay to me. All right, all in favor, vote. Karsten?
Yes.
Lexi?
Yes.
Dayton? Myself, yes. Thank you. And Brian, I think we'll leave this in to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll jump into my report following this, but I want to turn some time over to the state auditors to it's a financial or annual report that they do for us. So I'll let them present at this time and introduce themselves to you. Welcome to Joseph City.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Chris Rotterbeck. I am the manager of the Accountability Service Division at the Auditor General's Office. And with me today is Michael Carnahan. He's one of my senior accountants. Thank you for providing us time at your meeting to let us walk through our office's school district financial risk analysis website and help you to understand your district's January 2026 results as one of the 9 highest risk districts identified in that analysis. If you aren't already familiar with our annual financial risk analysis, we use the most current data available for 10 financial measures to identify districts at the highest risk of not being able to operate within their available budget constraints and cash resources. Based on both their current and potential financial difficulties. The purpose of this analysis is to provide district decision makers and stakeholders with data that will help them better understand their district's financial risks and use that information when making district budgeting and finance related decisions. Our analysis is a year-round process where we gather data and communicate with the highest risk districts and approaching highest risk districts. In December, Michael held a virtual meeting with the district's management to discuss the district's highest risk measures and actions the district has taken or plans to take to address some of these risk measures. The business manager then completed our financial risk action plan template and which outlines their identified risk causes, planned actions, and estimated financial impact. We will have time at the end of our presentation to answer any questions that you may have. Now I'm going to turn over to Michael to go over our analysis website.
First, to get to our website, you can go to azauditor.gov. And then if we scroll down to the bottom, there's a school district financial risk analysis. Click view the report, and then overview. It brings us to the right side.
Is it not refreshing?
There you go.
There we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll walk you through the financial risk analysis website just to help you become better familiar with the analysis and the information that it offers to you as district governance. So if we start with overview, it just provides a snapshot of the current year's analysis, our process, and available resources. More detailed background information on the report and our analysis is available on the overview page, but we won't be going over that in detail today. So the top part shows the key takeaways from our analysis. For this year, that includes increases in the number of districts that are overall among the highest risk and approaching the highest risk categories, as well as the number of districts that are high risk for 7 of the 10 measures that we will go over. So we then include the current highest risk districts and districts that are approaching the highest risk with an expandable list that shows the district's high risk measures and then the map that shows their locations. Then we also have a downloadable summary that contains that list of high risk measures for all of the high risk districts and those that are approaching the high risk, along with a brief description of the measures. So next, in the new section that we included in this year's report that shows the 1 year change in the number of districts at high risk for each of the individual measures compared to last year's analysis to help illustrate the increase in risk that we saw in this year's results. We include some information about why we do this analysis and why it is important to you. Then we include the 7 categories briefly described here that the 10 financial risk measures fall under. And we'll talk more about these in more detail as we go through your district's results. As Chris mentioned, we provide the district with the financial risk action plan guidance and template that is available for all districts and that the highest risk districts are required to submit to us. And it is posted on the district's page on our analysis site. Then we have this graphic that shows that year-round process to gather and analyze the most current data available from the measures, communicate with the highest risk districts, and then annually issue that report of our analysis. At the bottom, we have an Excel file that contains the 2026 data, the analysis results, and other information presented throughout this report. So before we move on to the district's page, I wanted to touch on the state results page. That provides just an overview of our financial risk analysis results at the statewide level, which can also be filtered by county or legislative district. For example, you could select Navajo County to see all the districts in the county. So that top section is just a high-level presentation of the number of districts that are high risk of each of the measures identified. And then this bottom section provides detailed information on which districts are at high risk for each measure. And then this could also be filtered in multiple ways. So if you go over to the district results and then you type in the district's name, you can see you see that the district is identified as among the highest risk district at the top of the page, and then for districts that are in highest risk, we included a narrative summary of the risk identified in the individual measures, and then the district provided that financial risk action plan that addresses the district's financial risk identified below. And we also have this measures page that has more detailed information for each measure that can be accessed with the link here or the navigation bar. And then this just includes more about the measure, why it's important, how we identify districts as high risk, how the measure is calculated, as well as like the data source. If you want to refer back to that after this presentation. So the district is high risk for 5 measures, which due to the number in nature led to the overall highest risk designation. So we'll go over each measure in detail now. So first is the change in the weighted student count. And this shows the district's change in the Group A weighted student count over a 1 year and a 4-year period as of December 2025. And then we obtained the weighted student count from the Arizona Department of Education reports. So student count decreases generally results in decreases in available revenues. So if a district is experiencing substantial student count decreases and does not adjust its spending accordingly, it could exceed its statutorily prescribed budget limits. So we look at both that 1 year and the 4-year change because both long-term declines and single year substantial declines could have a major impact on the district's budget. So for this measure, we assigned the risk points for both the 1 year and the 4-year percent change. Then we added a multiplier to the 4-year decline for districts with consecutive years of declines to capture risk associated with persistent downward trends in weighted student count. So districts could receive up to 5 risk points for this measure, and districts with 3 or more risk points are considered high risk for this measure. So if you want to see the specific risk point threshold and an example of our calculation, you can go back to that negative page that I talked about earlier. So for your results, since Jcusd City is considered a small size school, it has a 1-year decline of negative 2.54%. We assigned half a risk point for the 1-year decline. And then for the 4-year change, it was a negative 11%, which resulted in 2 risk points for the 4-year decline. And further, if we look at the data, we can see that the weighted student count has declined every year over the last 5 years, and therefore the district received the max multiplier of the 2 points. So in total, the district received 4.5 points for this measure and this high risk for the measure. So the weighted student count measure it's one of the more predictive measures in our analysis. So district boards and management need to monitor this information regularly to understand when it needs to adjust its spending as the resources available changes. So there are some districts that even use some more predictive measures like surveys or demographers to try to understand and plan for where enrollment will be in the future to help drive the spending decisions in the future. So for current information, ADE issues the monthly student count reports and funding reports that the district should monitor throughout the year as student count fluctuates. And then at the end of each fiscal year, ADE then issues the final recalculated student count as used in our report. So next, Chris will talk about the next 2 measures.
Okay, so now we'll talk about the next 2 measures which assess the district's budget limit reserves and the spending within the budget limits. For a little background on what these budget limits are, every Arizona school district annually adopts statutorily prescribed maintenance and operation or M&O fund and unrestricted capital outlay or UCO fund budget limits. These two main district fund budget limits are what we analyze in the operating and capital budget limit reserve measures, which is the next 2 up on the screen there. Those limits are in part based on the district student counts, as we just discussed. So as the student counts go down, the district's budget limit usually and almost always decreases as well. Not every single time, but generally that they'll follow the trend with the student count declines. This year we added some new pieces to the data on this measure card to help provide some additional context around the district's reserve amount. The new pieces this year are each year's budget limit, which is in the left column there, and including the current year and the total expenditure amounts over the last 5 years. And that's in the second column there. And then the balance shows the difference between those 2 and the years that they've completed. At the end of each year, ADE will compare the district's expenditure budget limit to the district's reported expenditures in their AFR. And any unspent operating capital or operating or capital budget capacity may be carried over into the next year as a reserve, and that would increase the following year's total operating or capital budget limit. We identify districts as high risk for this measure if they have overspent their budget limit, which is not the case here, or if the district's budget limit reserves have substantially decreased, which that's what we're seeing. Similar to wage student count, we analyze declines in budget limit reserve for both a 1 year and a 4-year change to have an understanding of the district's circumstances in both the short term and the long term. Your district is high risk for the operating budget reserve measure since it reduces reserves by 83.5% between 24 and 25. And then 59% over the 4 years since 2021. Additionally, it has decreased its capital budget limit by 29.28% in fiscal year 25 and 75.93% over the 4 years. These decreases in both the 1 year and 4 year percentages exceed the highest risk threshold for the operating capital reserve measures that we look at. Those thresholds are 25% for 1 year or 50% for 4 years. So anything greater than that puts you in high risk. These declining reserves indicate higher financial risk as the district now has less resources available for future spending. Combining this information with the declining student count and thus declining current year funding, every year that the district continues to dip into its reserves puts it at higher risk of the possibility of overspending its budget limit at some point if the trend continues. I would like to point out that the district's operating capital budget limit reserve actually increased in 2022 from 2021. And your business manager acknowledged it in his plan that the district was able to build its operating fund reserves between 21 and 22 because of the additional COVID-19 monies that were available at those times. And as you're probably aware, those relief monies are no longer available from the federal government. So it's still important to monitor how much reserves that the district is using each year, since the continued use of those reserves will not be sustainable in the long run.
So do you mind if I ask a question?
Yes.
So that budget limit, that's how much the state says you can spend, correct?
For on the left side would be for your M&O fund, and the right side would be for your UCO fund.
Right, but I'm just, well, you got the years and then you got budget limit.
Correct.
So that's how much our budget limit was
Right.
by the state, right? Expenditures is how much we spent.
Correct.
The balance is how much was left over that wasn't spent.
Correct.
But is that carried over going up or not?
It would,
It doesn't look like it's carried
well,
over. It's
for
just the
26, we don't have spending of information. You're still in 26. So that will be for this year. So coming into 26 this year, you had 20,798 that was in reserve from last year, from 25.
So, okay,
And that's reflected in the limit that you have for 26 that's showing up there. The 20,000 is included in there.
okay. So let me ask this
Okay.
question then. So let's just take 2024 for example.
Yes.
It says we had a limit of 5,800 or 5,810,543.
Yep.
And we spent, what is that? 5,000 or 5,684,468. Having a hard time reading the numbers.
That's okay. They're small too on it.
For a balance of 126.75, correct?
Yeah.
But then the next year, is that 120.75? Is that part of the budget limit?
So the 126,075 does go into the budget limit for the next year.
So it goes into the
Choose-
budget
there you
limit
go.
for the next year.
Excuse me?
So it did go into the
Yes.
budget. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't look at yours budget exactly in it, but typically when there is an amount that would be available for carryover, it does get added to your budget limit unless the district for some reason chooses not to do that.
Okay, so what we're saying is the budget limit is not necessarily what the state says, this is your budget. It's what the state says, this is your budget, plus whatever you had left over from the previous year.
Correct. If they
Okay.
combine into to give that amount, so what your budget would be. So you have the amount that's calculated off your student count, plus any reserve that you have would create your budget limit for that current year that you're in.
Okay, so this is gonna be a question that does it make a difference what that reserve was left over. So if does the state go, oh, they had 886 or whatever, let's say the 120, let's go back up to that one line, the 120.
Right.
675,
Yep.
they had that. So do they minus that from what their limit would be to make it whatever our student count was going to be? Or do
No,
they say, here's your student count money plus this is what you
yeah,
can
it starts at the beginning with your student count and it runs through calculations based off of whether you have like a group B weight, which would be your disability beyond your typical normal. And then you'll have other factors go into that. And then after that all comes up to give you an amount. And then if you have a reserve, that gets added to it. Okay, the budget's on page 7. If you're that savvy with how the budget works, there's a line in there where it brings that in.
Okay, got it.
And
And I
then-
just wanted to make sure I was clear on what numbers were talking to me.
Robert.
And they were trying to.
And one of the reasons why we look at the budget limit reserve is just because that shows how close the district was to spending over its budget limit, because of course, schools have to spend within their budget limits. So the less reserve means the closer the district was to overspending, and it leaves less cushion in the future. So
We're not in trouble because we're spending more than we have. We're in trouble because we're getting close to spending what we have.
Correct.
they're close
Yeah.
to it's just
Gotcha.
a risk.
Yeah, if it was a negative amount there, then you
That
would
would be
overspend.
Yeah.
Well, this could be considered bad if you get to that point where if you got expenditures that are coming up that you hadn't planned for, and
Right.
then you got to do it, and then you'll have your money to do it.
I got you.
Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, so we kind of just covered this, but I'll go over here for anybody that wasn't paying attention to what we're talking about. So as you can see, your operating budget limit decreased from over 5.3 million in 2025 to about 5 million in 2026. While your capital budget limit, which is the other side, which we hadn't talked about, actually increased from around 317,000 in 2025 to just under 367,000 in 2026. That's an increase of 303,000 for decrease for 303,000 for operating, and an increase of 49,000 for capital spending authority, which nets out to a $254,000 overall reduction in spending authority for the year. And then I'll have Michael go over the next section here.
So that's the budget limit reserve measures. So this next set is the general fund financial position measures. So while the budget limit reserve looks at what the district is legally allowed to spend within its two main funds, the M&O and the UCO funds, these next three focus on the general fund, which analyzes components of the district's primary operating fund, and along with the revenues, expenditures, and then their ending balance to identify potential risk related to the general fund resources. And while these measures look at similar financial data, the general fund, they focus on different relationships with that data. Because the general fund measure results often relate to the operating budget limit reserve measure, since the maintenance and operation fund is the main component of every district's general fund. And then the rest of the general fund amounts is any of the other funds that the district designated as its general fund in its individual statements and in the unaudited AFR. So we obtained the general fund amounts from the district's fiscal year 24 audited financial statements, and then the fiscal year 25 unaudited AFR that it submitted in October. So to avoid distorting the measure ratios, these 2 years should not be compared. So it's important to look at the data source in the year we're analyzing this information. So for the first one, the operating reserve measure, this shows the percentage of general fund monies held in reserve for future spending, or their fund balance, and then compares it to the total spending from the prior year. So a negative operating reserve ratio indicates a negative fund balance, which means the district must use monies received in the following year to cover the prior year spending. So next is the operating margin ratio, which shows the percentage of general fund revenues not spent in the year received for the 2 most recent years. So a negative ratio indicates that the district spent more money than it received for the year and spent some of the money from its previous year's reserves. So we could consider all districts with the negative reserve rate, negative reserve at high risk for this measure. We only identify risk for districts with a negative operating margin that has less than 2 months of general fund expenditures in reserve at the end of the most recent fiscal year. So the reserves was over here. And then the 2 months is about that 16%, so 2. Since a district with low operating reserves exposes itself to higher risk each time its spending exceeds its revenues. So the district is high risk due to its fiscal year 24 and 25 general fund spending exceeding its revenues by 9% and 6% respectively, and it had less than 2 months of reserves at the end of fiscal year 25. So if we look at the data tab, you can see that for both years, the district had more expenditures than revenues, which aligns with that downward trend in the budget limit reserve measures above. Next is the change in the fund balance measure. That just shows that 1 year percent change for each of the most recent 2 years in the district's general fund balance. So declining general fund balances or negative general fund balances in the most recent year indicate the higher risk as less resources are available for current and future spending. So as you can see, the district's general fund balance has decreased by about negative 5% from fiscal year 24 to 25 and negative about 21.9% from 23 to 24. And then the data tab shows that the decrease of over 497,000 from 2024 and a decrease of over 295,000 from 23 to 24. And then since the change in fund balance is greater than the risk threshold of 25%, this measure is high risk. Chris will go over the next measures below.
Right, so the money's redirected to operations measure shows that the percentage of the intended capital funding districts have redirected to operational spending rather than capital spending in the current year and on average over the last 5 years. As the data tab shows here, there's been no transfer like that, so this one's not high risk for your district. The next 3 measures are small school budget limit adjustment, frozen tax rate, and receivership measures. And again, these do not apply to the district. So these are not, at the moment, an issue for the high risk for you guys. At the bottom of the page, we do show some less common revenues that districts receive in 2025. We provide this information for users to consider when they're analyzing district results, as it provides some context for revenues each district receives that are not available to all districts. Joseph City Unified School District received $680,000 in M&O voter override budget or M&O voter approved budget overrides in 2025. This is helpful when comparing districts to know that there are revenue sources that your district does or doesn't have. So in conclusion, we would like to emphasize 4 pieces of information for the members to take away. The district's declining student enrollment is an area of concern, and the board should be considering how it affects budget decisions going forward. The district's substantial decline in budgetary reserves in 2025, along with these declining student counts, should be another major factor in the district's decisions for the current year and when planning its 2027 budget, which is coming up right around the corner. The district's general fund spending exceeded its revenues, and the district left less resources available for future needs than it has in previous years. The district should consider how this will influence current year expenditures. And finally, while the district has not exceeded its statutory prescribed budget limits or cash resources, it must identify and implement appropriate risk mitigation measures to prevent future overspending and cash deficits. Going forward, we'll continue to communicate with the district manager throughout the rest of this year as we gather new data for our analysis, and we will publish an updated school district financial risk analysis in January 2027 for the next year to reflect the most current data that we have at the time. After that report's issued, we can come back and present the updated results to the board. So that concludes our presentation, and we'd be happy to take any questions. I know Superintendent would like to present his plan to you for what we've received from him.
Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you for the information. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so as part of my report, I'm gonna talk about some of the measures that we'd like to take. They're called mitigating actions on if you want a hard copy, please take that. And I'll take you through a summary of what these mitigating actions will be. Like as explained during the presentation, declining enrollment has hit us pretty hard, but it looks like it's hitting everywhere hard. As you can see, the districts at risk have increased quite a bit from the previous year, but our enrollment down 11% over 4 years, 2.5% from last year to this year. There's reasons, and they are listed in here, variety of reasons. That's hurting the district as far as our budget, our declining enrollment. So some of the things we've already done, we have buses traveling to pick students up from out of district. It's one thing that we've done. Trying to see what the economy is going to bring with the change of maybe restarting of a power plant, but with the new industry in our taxing district. So that's another thing we've got to look at when it comes to our enrollment. One thing I want to just point out is even though our enrollment went down, our needs, our special ed students that get weighted, like they demonstrated here, actually went up. So our needs increased over that same period. That's reflected in their information and in ours that we put together here. So hoping for a turn quickly in enrollment, and hoping for a long time. And I guess it's time now to take some action. That it's not gonna, doesn't look like it's gonna turn anytime soon. But if with current year funding like it is in education, it can change very quickly. So that's risk area 1. Risk area 2, as far as the decline in budget reserve, that's what it is. A lot of that you see from the 800,000 down to where it is now was COVID funds that we were required to spend, and we tried to be prudent with our decisions of how we were going to spend that. So, but eventually we had to spend it all, and that's a big chunk of that percentage of decrease in our capital budget. But yes, we definitely have done that. Some of the things we're looking at doing, reducing staffing costs wherever we can. So this might, it's things don't change. It will be through attrition as people quit, maybe some rearranging. Programs, we're gonna have to look at programs in order to build this budget back up as well. So those are the main mitigating action steps that we're going to be taking for that. Basically wherever we can, but staffing is going to have to be addressed and programming. Risk area number 3. And also on page 4 here, a breakdown of our plan of where we're going to take recover some of these funds from non-levy accounts that we have in the county. We have accounts like gifts and donations. You see 900,000 in classroom site fund that we have. So we have some plans to deal with that, but you can read the details of the plan if you'd like. Risk area 3 is once again, with declining enrollment, we're just going to have to take actions that reduce our spending somehow. The spending I'm talking about is the repeating, year salaries. That's the biggest chunk of our budget. So, but this plan does include replenishing those reserves. So risk area 4, very similar to risk area 3, as you'll see, but general fund changes. We've had some challenges with this as far as getting data accurate so we could update some things, but where it stands now, we're still trying to correct some things with the SFB. So those numbers on the mitigating action bullet, the first one, has some unknown in it, but we think there's going to be some funds coming from that. Also, short-term financing to recover or to be able to spend our budget before taxes are paid in our district has been an issue. And specifically last year, that was a big issue for us. And it was identified as an issue here. State equalization of advances. So one thing we've learned through this is there's an advance you can apply for when you have a tax situation like we have. So we will be applying for that to help with this risk area. It's a cash flow risk. Basically, what do we have in our account at the time that we're paying our expenses? That's been a challenge for us this year. But that's been addressed, and we're on track to not exceed our budget, but like it's been pointed out, our reserves have been replenished, and it's time to probably start looking at reducing some of the things we do when we offer. As far as our action plan, that I would say that's a summary of what we'll gather look at. And we could dive more into this Friday when we have a budget work session.
Okay. Is there any questions for these things?
So, moving forward, I've never been in this position, in this situation. And maybe they need to answer this as well, I don't know. And maybe I'm completely out of line. How much trouble are we in? Or what's?
Good question.
We're in trouble. We're active.
Yes, I understand that.
Well, they've kind of said their piece, so I'll take it. It is what it is. I'm looking at it as valuable information for me to try and get us on the right track in the final semester here this year. So I'm actually appreciative for this information. Publicity is what you're looking at this, which I mean it is what it is. I mean, everything's accurate that they've shown. It's inaccurate.
Are we on the right track?
For this plan,
Are you?
I don't know if they'll answer that. I'll let them, but they've approved this plan.
Okay.
So this plan will get us back on the right track. Would you like to add anything to that?
So the decisions that the district makes are really what will get you on the right track. So we can't really make an opinion because it's a predictive thing that we just be making a guess at what it is. So again, it's the decisions that the district makes as far as the spending and what goes into your budget limits and all that. So
Yeah, that's why part of the plan it has the district identify its causes because these are the results, but for each district, multiple different causes could be into play. So these are the causes that the district management has identified and then the risks that they plan on addressing with those. So in terms of is it sufficient, that's up to the district to decide.
yeah, and then like we said, we do analyze over the year, and at the end of the year, we will put this analysis back out in January of next year. But again, it's kind of it's all based off results, not of, I can't predict what the future is going to be. So
This is an awareness tool to help you as decision
like
makers.
we see warning sign that there could be a problem in the future, and that's what we're letting you know.
Thank you.
Anything else you can answer for you?
No, thank you though, we appreciate it.
Do you have any?
Yeah, my
Do you want to
report,
report on?
yeah, so you have a written report from me and I'd be happy to elaborate on it. Also some positive things going on in our district, from the spelling bee to progress with some SFP projects that we've been working on. We are also in the midst of a performance audit, which is a financial audit that they'll come in and look at programs and our record keeping. I want to let you know about that. That's one that's done, well, not annually, but occasionally. They randomly select districts for that. Is what the official procedure is. We want to address some bullying concerns. So I've met with the principals about this and we've talked. And I even have a sample resource sheet that I've been working on. Over the next 2 months, we're going to try and provide some resources and maybe give some more lessons on bullying. And even if something's not a bullying situation, but people are referring to it as bullying, we want to treat that serious. But we want to make sure everything is communicated clearly. There's a set definition for bullying. There's a set definition for harassment. There's other things that are terrible and students shouldn't do that we also need to treat very serious. So that's the plan of attack. And we want to include parents and teachers and of course, all stakeholders in this, but a little campaign of anti-bullying. So you have some information from there. If you want to do it. Other than that, I have a summary of our district irrigation water share program in my report. So I can take any questions on that. Sewage backup issues at the high school are addressed in here. It's currently working, but we don't know for how long. We're watching it closely because this is a terrible problem to have. At first, became manifested at the level that was extremely bad was at the wrestling tournament. Mr. Miller notified me, but maintenance came in over the weekend and they've worked on getting that cleaned up and running, but it came back. We've had plumbers looking at it and the water. But I did want to make you aware of that. Of course, superintendent letters for the first semester are out. HVAC engineering and designing, and they're going to continue to work this semester and hopefully have a plan for us soon to redo the entire district HVAC. For funding for this, we're looking for some help from SFB and possibly a bond. But we'll have to look at their assessment once they've completed it. And I have some itinerary for the senior trip as an item as well. But like I said, I'll elaborate on anything that you like that. No.
Okay, thank you. Anybody got questions or something? All right. Thank you, Mr. Fields. Like we have requests to speak to the board next, which is weird. Nobody signed up. Okay, thank you. That brings us to consent agenda items. I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items as outlined. Give a second. All right, Dayton, thank you.
The 7's correct.
The sevens, yes.
A through C.
A through C. Any questions? Discussion needed? All right. Call for vote, Lexi.
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Carson?
Yes.
All right. That brings us to action items 9A, personnel requests. I'll make a motion that we approve the personnel request as presented.
Second it.
Thank you, Lexi. Any questions, comments? Okay, Gary Johnson's given us a lot of years of work. Appreciate all the work that she's done and the years she's been there. Also Tyler, he's done a good job. He's been there a long time. Okay.
I wouldn't know as long as this job's doing.
Yep. All right. Call for the vote. Dayton, myself, yes. Karsten.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. That brings us to number 10. Review of possible policies may be considered for adoption at future meeting. There's one that looks, this must be the first reading.
Yeah,
So I'll make a motion that we approve for the first reading of this policy change.
yeah, it's, I don't have it in front of me, but the change was to increase the threshold for audit to 1 million from 750,000.
Okay. It's just the first reading,
First reading.
so we have it and we look at it next time. What's that?
A second on that?
I didn't get one.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Lexi. Okay, that brings us to requests for future agenda items. Do we have a request for future agenda items?
We have a few things. We have IGA coming up. The seniors have increased their FAFSA rate. That's paperwork that's required to apply for colleges that qualify you for scholarships and financial assistance. And more of our students are completing that with the program. Mr. Bushman at the high school and Mr. Miller, and they are going to receive a little financial award after we get this signed next month, and recognition for the program's called 50 by fall. And we made that over 50% of that class.
Good. Okay, if we don't have any suggestions for future, our upcoming meetings, we got a work session Friday. Is that at 6? We did
It's supposed to be at 9.
9.
a.m.
That's what I
That's
got.
6 p.m.
It says 6 p.m. on there. I thought we did it
Sorry, I missed that.
9.
We'll correct it for a minute.
That'd be 9 a.m. not p.m.
Damn, I hope so.
I'd probably sleep through it if it wasn't my beast. Yeah, sorry. Then our next regular board meeting is the 10th. That superintendent search candidate selection and interview prep is on the 27th. First round of interviews on the 8th of April. And the 17th of April is going to be that final round
There's probably a
and the
board,
meet and greet.
probably a normal board meeting between the 8th and 17th as well.
I think so. Somewhere in there. We may need to throw in another work session. We'll see how this one goes on Friday. I'm thinking we're probably gonna want another work session between Friday and May.
Sure.
Anything else? Okay. Make a motion that we adjourn. Can I get a second?
I'll second
Okay, myself, yes.
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 it.
Call it 6:49. We are adjourned. Thanks, you everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Stupid down the signage.
Yeah. I would like to talk to you about sometime.
You like what I do?
Yes, I just didn't have some tools.
But yeah, that's a lot of people, you know, we haven't finalized it, which is something that this would be more for teachers to, I guess. This is
Right.
But yeah, I'd love to hear your input. Yeah, we can email or it can be whatever.
I could probably just email them.
Yeah, whatever you like, it's fine.
So I wanted to ask, but I didn't know if you want ever hear. Why does the state, they should recognize, hey, we're having more schools become at risk when we build on that. A lot of it's over, if you look at the list, a lot of it's over declining a student. Maybe we should look at their, programs where they're paying people to take their kids out of school.
So that's my plan when I have to testify.
Something should be said about it.
If they provide us. But, yeah, I'm gonna point that out.
I think you should be finding out. Yeah. I mean, that's a real, in this state, that's a real fraction of taking do for this.
It's part of the plan, getting to prosperity too.
Do you think that will stay that way though?
Which,
The homeschooling.
It's getting worse.
It's getting worse.
it's something that's gotta give though,
It's gonna stay worse.
You think so? Because at least for me, I couldn't stand to be around my kids that much.
Most of the people that homeschool do nothing.
How can they get away with that? Because you have to report grades and stuff like,
Do I know that most of the people I know that do homeschool don't do nothing?
I will say,
Don't do nothing, you do lots of things, because it's a double negative.
we gotta be careful talking too there with the open meeting laws, but one thing I think that's interesting
Yeah, there should be.
about that is, we talk about, we could recruit to try and get full kids.
We're not recording anymore, correct?
No, we're not.
Okay.
The kids that used to be homeschooled would come in with very good testers, like on standardized tests. And I don't know if it's going to continue, but it has.
They're replaced the same first.
And the second page or back. Oh, there is for me. I know. I guess not. I don't know why.
I mean, there's a thing that says approved and date.
So we put it when the government approves it, but usually you don't have to sign a form. Sure. But so I'm interested to see how that changes, but something's going to give in public education. I just don't know what it is. It's hurting, and it can hurt you after you set your budget. Like all the kids get dropped
How
out.
many did we have that left that semester?
I didn't look that up.
I think there's at
We have
least
a
5.
50% increase in spec.
January.
I think.
Yeah, there's some. It's unfortunate, but figure it out.
Is anybody asking these people, like, is there a specific reason why you're pulling your kids out, or are we just?
Yeah, to try survey them. I always ask when they tell me. But sometimes they don't tell the principal what they really. We have some things that we can sell. If we really want to talk about it, 4 day a week. For one, safe. For two, I mean, this should attract some good students who think that they're out there.
Good.
So that's what we should. I think I'll let you go. Thank you.
We'll see ya.
Drive safe.
Yeah, because second grade, made the boards and then because that was the holidays. So it's, probably.
No, we just. I usually do it.
Third grade.
When I'm doing the minutes. And next thing. And then for Eldon is always just. Yeah, if you want to be spending time, there's no smell.
Try and get something that's probably hard for you.
I am, right,
I'm sure.
Huh? And it's time months to everything good for the air.
Do what?
For the everybody, a little brochure, so I can do like a half page of the whole thing. And I'll send you some highlights of it, and then you can or with it or whatever you want. It's not a timely.
Oh, okay, so like Friday maybe?
Yeah.
I might not be here Friday.
Oh.
This trial goes longer,
Oh.
but I might.
Okay.
Might be back.
I don't have yours here, and I told them, and you can listen to this too. But, we're doing the box tops.
Yes,
Okay, so you were when I,
Yep.
so the month of February, we're.
I'm doing it. I already signed up for it.
Okay, did you put it in for third grade?
Yes, I
Okay,
did.
thank you very much, because right now
And I've been
kindergarten is
scanning
200.
My fee.
We're the next closest with 80. And so it's
I've been scanning my things.
wonderful.
So-
Well, and you can link your Walmart. I still scan my Walmart,
Uh-huh.
only because I don't know that they track things every time.
Oh.
And so I want to
Then
make
turn it
sure.
off there.
Yep. I'm just gonna grab my gumball stuff out here. Wonderful, yes.
Yeah,
I
exciting.
just spread that.
That would have been a call to the public. You could have
You know, I
done that.
thought about it and didn't. Have a great evening.
Yeah, he's too. Probably fine.
Joey,
I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it was God doing. Yeah. Yeah. So this time. Yeah. What's that? Did you hear me? I'm Sunshine. If I can talk to those girls, we'll talk to you soon. Bye. Bye.